this is Natalie with Champion of Coins Tarot. I hope that you all are doing very well today. I wanted to come on to film a video response to Sorcha Soaring's tag, Pacing the Tarot. This tag is an opportunity for us to look at 3 decks in our collection, our least used deck, an oldie but a goodie, and a deck that is making us reevaluate our tarot practice right now. And I thought that this would just be a really good pulse check to do. I'm also just a fan of Sorcha in general, and I've been wanting to make a video response to a few of her videos for a while now. But if you aren't already familiar with her work, she is a incredibly knowledgeable and eloquent witch. She has such great content about history and art and mythology and dream working, and she weaves everything together in a really beautiful and fascinating way. So I highly recommend checking her out and also participating in this tag if you would also like to have the opportunity to reflect on your current tarot journey at the moment. So the decks that I'm going to be discussing are the Primordial Terra by Lo Scarabeo, the Tarot of the Magical Forest by Lo Scarabeo, and the Spirit Keeper's Tarot by Annabelle Wen. So for least used deck, the Primordial Tarot definitely wins that title by a landslide. This is actually the 3rd edition of the deck. I believe the original was published as a majors only in the late 80s, I think 1989. Was re-released in the 90s, and then the 3rd edition came out in 2020 with this really beautiful, almost full bleed art and an extended little white book written by Barbara Moore. And this is of course inspired by human primordial history, specifically the period of history that started around 70,000 years ago with the cognitive revolution, which is when human beings began developing language, culture, art. There was a huge boom in terms of kind of Stone Age technology that we were using. Still living in these hunter-gatherer nomadic societies, but this is definitely when we begin to see kind of, again, culture and art and philosophy take shape. And I wanted this deck because I am very fascinated just by human evolution, particularly by the evolution of religion and mythology. And I thought that it would be interesting just to kind of have this artwork to see where it took me. There really are not any significant differences between the cognitive function of our Stone Age ancestors and modern humans today, although we certainly are dealing with our own different sets of challenges. We've kind of built up these barriers against ourselves in the natural world, especially in kind of like the developed, globalized West. And that's both for good and for bad. So I thought that this might be helpful in terms of exploring my shadow side and kind of feeling out what the essence of my humanness is, in a sense. That being said, this deck is quite difficult to read with because it is very loosely based on the Rider-Waite-Smith. You certainly have the 4 elemental suits, you have majors, you have court cards, but the artwork is kind of polarized between these very intense portraits of people, this intense emotion, and then the spaciousness of landscapes. There's also often a lot of animal imagery here, and the traditional symbols that we would associate with each tarot card are absent. And so in that way, this really reminds me of soul cards. I used to have soul cards 1 and 2, and I ended up gifting them because I found it to be difficult to read with in kind of an intuitive way. But then the follow-up question for, what is one thing you can do to change the fact that this is your least used deck if you should choose to do so? I think it would be having myself get more comfortable with that. Perhaps using this deck for more emotionally charged work or for perhaps creative writing. Using this not so much for spreads, but as something to really sit with and meditate with and journey with and to create art in and around. And I also think that this might be a good deck for doing ancestral work. I actually have not used it in that capacity, but I am a big fan of Nancy Hendrickson's Ancestral Tarot book, and she does include a spread for reaching out to our ancient prehistoric ancestors, right? Our ancestors beyond the record of written history. And so that might also function well in a spirit communication space. I do really love it. I think that it is completely evocative and completely unique in comparison to other types of decks in terms of the art style and also in terms of the specific kind of history that it represents. So my intention is to use this more in the month of September and to be able to report back to you all with a more fleshed out review. Then the second deck is an oldie but a goodie, and this is my well-worn, well-loved copy of the Tarot of the Magical Forest by Lo Scarabeo. This was the third tarot deck that I ever had, after the Golden Tarot and after the classic Yellow Box US Games version of the Rider-Waite-Smith. I love this deck so much. This is what really made tarot click for me, because it has all of the elements of traditional tarot symbolism, but it presents them in such a whimsical way. And these animals are very cartoon-like, they're very playful and expressive, but they can also convey such powerful depths of emotion. Like, I love this chariot. I love the hedgehog who is driving these oxen forward. He looks a little bit like he's in over his head. Like, he doesn't quite know what he's doing, but he's in the driver's seat nonetheless and has to keep going forward. So again, there's a lot that I can really relate to in this imagery that really speaks to me. And this is also my most frequently used deck for other people, especially when I was younger and still in college. I read for all of my friends with it. I would also take this deck to the library on campus just to have with me, and sometimes people would see me with it and they would come up and they would ask if I would draw a card for them. And so I did a lot of kind of on the fly free readings like that, and this deck was always very grounded. I found that the messages that it had for other people were just as accurate as the ones that it gave to myself. And again, this is one that is very warm, it's very approachable, it's surprisingly versatile. I've actually been relying on this recently for personal readings for myself over the last 2 weeks, just because I was missing this imagery. I wanted to reconnect with it, and I found that even though it still has that playful spirit, it has kind of matured along with me. Or perhaps I am bringing a more mature, kind of an older point of view and my own lived experience to this, and being able to still find connection and resonance with these images. So this deck, I wouldn't say it's ever waned in my practice, because that's the follow-up question, is if this deck has ever waned in your practice. I would say that always loved it, but it hasn't been consistently out. I haven't been working with it on a consistent basis over the last couple of years, but I'm getting into that groove with it again, and I do want to have this close on hand, and I do want to continue interacting with these images regularly. If not every single day, then definitely continuing to return to this as a regular touchstone for myself. And then the final question is a deck that makes you reassess, and that is definitely the Spirit Keeper's Tarot by Benabel Wen. So I've definitely been doing like a soft launch of this deck on my channel. So this deck came into my collection at the end of July. I had pre-ordered it and it arrived just before my birthday, and I've really been enjoying working through the tarot workbook that Benabel Wen created to accompany this deck and doing all of those structured readings that she's outlined for it. And it's making me reassess, because I usually don't spend that kind of intentional time with like getting to know a new tarot system. I'm usually somebody who really wants to just jump in and try reading things out of the box and seeing how it fits into my current practice. But this deck is so different. every single deck in this edition, the Revelations edition, is sorted into a particular order. My deck is the Order of the Warrior, and there are certain tarot correspondences and I Ching correspondences that are associated with this deck in particular that Benabel encourages you to work through. And so I did that, and that was very transformational. And then she's also created some really beautiful exercises about getting to know your tarot birth cards more intimately, specifically the cards that relate to your sun sign and your ruling planet. And that has also been very, very powerful. I have definitely been incorporating more astrology into my tarot readings this year as a result of doing the Deck and Walk challenge that Marlena Teresa is leading us through on YouTube and on Facebook, and that's been really great. But I haven't actually sat down and really journaled about the Chariot as being my core numerical card, or I haven't really ever sat down and journaled about strength, about being my sun sign Leo, or about the sun as being the ruling planet of Leo. Or I do a lot of work with the Empress, but haven't really thought about it in terms of the Venusian connection, because that's my chart ruler as a Libra rising. Just all of these things, Benabel 1 has really woven all of these correspondences into the deck and created a very clear and simple but deeply profound method for journaling through all of those concepts and seeing how they play into the story of your life. And that's been really amazing. And having this particular deck filtered through the lens of the warrior in particular has helped me to reframe myself as somebody who is very strong, who has won a lot of battles and overcome a lot of obstacles. And it's really made me kind of pause and learn how to give myself more credit where credit is due when I really haven't done that before. I'm usually someone who is always kind of curious and always looking forward to the next thing, rather than fully appreciating the past or fully appreciating the present moment that I am in. So this deck has really made me reassess in that way. It's made me slow down and spend time with myself. It has also made me slow down and spend more time studying these key associations with the tarot. And the follow-up question here is, what is something that you can do about that if you want to? I would say the lesson here is to make space for connecting with tarot and with connecting with myself. Like really giving myself space, and instead of moving and moving all the time, learning how to sit still and reflect and learn how to channel that strength more. So yes, I've really, really been enjoying getting to know this deck, and I'm really grateful for the reassessment that it has provided me on my path. So those are my picks for the Pacing the Tarot tag by Sorcia Soaring. As always, let me know if you have any of these decks. I would be very curious to hear if you have had similar or dissimilar experiences to me. I am going to leave the questions in the description box below, because I realize that I was very rambly and maybe not as clear as I would have wanted to be. So if you want to play along, or if you just want help with pacing my own responses to this tag, then I will leave that as a resource along with Sorcia's original video. Again, I think that she is just a really amazing creator, and I appreciate this tag and the opportunity it has given me to more mindfully think about 3 decks that are on my table right now. As always, I'm sending you much love and many blessings as you walk along your own path. Bye.